It's official. The Pacers are playoff bound. Yet it doesn't feel that ceremonious like last year. Why is it so different? Plus, is Pascal Siakam in a slump right now? If so, why? And so much more on today's Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, y'all? Happy Wednesday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, a lot to get to on the day that the Pacers, it's official. April 1st is the day they secured their spot in the Eastern Conference playoff field. They'll be in the Final Eight. It feels very unceremonious. Lots of reasons why. One is it felt fait accompli for a while now, but really, I think that says something about their season. Then, is Pascal Siakam slumping? I'm getting asked a lot about that recently. I dove a little bit into the numbers, and after a short, deep dive, it's not a real thing, a shorter dive, I said, I think this is an easy answer. And then we'll talk about magic numbers, seeding races, all sorts of good stuff that you need to know to close this one out. If you're here today on game day for Pacers Hornets, after Steph scored 50-something and Jokic scored 60-something, it's 2 a.m. right now for me because I stayed up watching double overtime games and recording Locked On NBA. You are a diehard Pacers person or really want this information. What a day for the Pacers. Did not expect their playoff clinch to be I've used this word already, unceremonious. The Hawks lose to the Blazers at home. Denny Avdia goes crazy, and that's it. The Pacers are in the field for sure. They've locked up 3 through 6. They can no longer fall farther than 6th. We'll talk more about specific seeding a little bit in the third segment. This is a little standings watchy, but the clinching a spot in a now a 6-team field pre-play-in is already something to celebrate, I think. But to do it this early, is an accomplishment, to be clear. They are the 4th team to do it in the East and only the 5th team in the entire NBA, albeit because the West has 8 good teams and the East only has 6. They are the 5th team in the entire NBA to clinch their spot in the playoff field. That is something significant. And it's really interesting to think about this time last year where the Pacers were fighting for their life to hold off the Orlando Magic and the Sixers of the world and who finished 8th, I can't remember, the Heats of the world, to try to get into the playoff field. And they were this young, growing team, and I'll never forget it. They beat Atlanta on that last game to secure their playoff spot. And we wait a little bit to do post-game media because everybody's watching the rest of the games to see what seed the Pacers are going to get. And then we can actually ask them about the Bucks and whatever. I'm telling too much story. They come into post-game media. Rick Carlisle's on the stand, and the Pacers haven't made the playoffs in a few years, and they're headlined by a lot of young players. Obviously, they have Pascal Siakam, but a lot of their rotation guys, I made this point a lot last year, were on their rookie deals or on their first contracts, right? And so this, to me, was, you ask Rick Carlisle, what does it mean for your team to make the playoffs? How does this feel for this group? And he went the opposite way, right? A lot of people in the room expected the easy answer. It's a big deal for us. We're glad to be on this trajectory. We're glad that we proved that we're one of the 6 best teams, and it shows the season and the track they're on, blah, blah. And Rick Carlisle, and then was proven right, by the way, a month later, said, oh, whatever. He didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing, to be clear, but said, no, we have way bigger aspirations than this. It's good that we made the playoffs, but we think we're better than that. We're trying to aspire for much more than just making the playoff field. And I think everybody's kind of like, wow, I didn't expect him to go with that level of I don't even know what the perfect word is, pomp. And he was right to do that. They won 2 rounds that year. Their style proved to be good in the playoffs. Those young ascending players were great in a postseason setting. And now they are the 5th team to clinch a playoff spot in the league. And so it was expected this year that they would make it. And they carried that attitude into the year, right? They said it last year. It's going to be hard to make the conference finals again. It is. But they know they're good enough to make noise and be a team that is damaging. And they're playing so well that they're getting the attention of national media now, and nobody wants to play the Pacers, and their records. What? best in the league since Christmas or whatever. Like all that stuff has come with their success, but it was expected. And their gap over 7 made it clear that they would secure it. And yet, to me, it just feels so different because they proved it last year in a playoff setting. They didn't just make it. Like they did so well in the playoffs last year that just making it this year feels like nothing. It feels like a non-accomplishment, which is not true. It is a big deal to make the playoffs. The Pacers' streak of playoff success over the last 30 to 35 years is very impressive. That's not like a thing that fans want. They want success on that stage, which is totally fair, to be clear. I'm not saying that's the wrong line of thinking, but this is a big deal for the Pacers to have done this. The other part of this that I think is fascinating, and this is the second part that when they clinched today that I spent a lot of time thinking about, you know, the way expectations and progress kind of change the way you feel about a team is what it is. Like when they ran it back with a team that won 47 games last year or 48, whatever, and made the conference finals, it's very natural to think, great, they should be a little better than that and have a chance to make the conference finals again. But did everybody forget what late November and early December felt like for the Pacers? I mean, they were 10-15, which is already a bad record. This is me only. This is not what everybody thought, but most people felt this way, I think. I did an entire podcast segment looking back on like trying to find NBA teams that were exclusively trying to win. That was their exclusive goals, and they could not do it. And I get that the Pacers were banged up, and I get that, and a lot of other, Haliburton wasn't playing well, a lot of other stuff going on. They were not winning games to like an excruciating degree, and they were losing to the Brooklyns of the world and the Charlottes of the world and the Torontos of the world multiple times. And there was a point after 25 games, nearly a third of an NBA season, where a lot of people probably thought, I think they were 10th in the East. Man, are they really not going to make it? Is it possible that this team doesn't make it? Should their expectations be reset? And since then, they've been awesome and have one of the best records in the league since that point. And they've gone back to beating everybody, and all their injured guys are back, and Haliburton's playing better, and everything that made them last year's team was there. But I did think about that today when they clinched this, is that it actually took, I wonder how much, internally they feel good about this, given how badly they started the season, to still be able to recover and prove that they are a good team. They have that level they had last year. They've shown that with their wins and their total level. I mean, their January was unbelievable. It was them and OKC at the top of the win percentages. That turnaround is what struck me. And so, in some ways, that makes it feel similar to last year. They proved that they are ascending in some way or can be better than previously thought. Last year was better than previously thought because of prior seasons. This year it's better than previously thought because of a, albeit earned, rough reputation after a disastrous start to the season. And so there was nothing ceremonious about clinching an Eastern Conference playoff spot this year. Last year, the 18 in the East got 46 wins or 47. This year, the 18 in the East might not even be a 500 team, right? It is an easier thing to do this year. And yet, the Pacers did it sooner. They did it with a very, very strong going on 4 months of NBA play. They did it with raised expectations. They fought drastic injuries, and they're in. It would have been way more fun from a coverage perspective, from this podcast segment perspective, to do it after a win. Especially, I was already prepping mentally for the Pacers conquered their kryptonite to make the playoffs segment. If they beat the Hornets to do it, I would have found that fun. I don't know if anybody else would have, given the Pacers Hornets history, but this works. And the fact that the Hawks can lose home games to a team like the Blazers shows you the NBA is hard. And the Pacers are the 5th team to clinch a playoff spot. The most common question I've gotten about one player in the last probably 10 days, Tony, what is going on with Pascal Siakam? Let's talk about it coming up here on Locked On Pacers. Before we do that, we need to talk about PrizePicks. Baseball season is here and in full swing. There's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you can pick more or less on at least 2 player stat projections. And if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, PrizePicks keeps every game exciting. You can build your lineup by picking, for example, Aaron Judge for more or less than one home run, or Shohei Ohtani for more or less than one stolen base. It's that easy. Setting up a lineup takes less than 60 seconds. And when you win, your payout is quick, safe, and secure. You can take advantage of their Taco Tuesday as well, where PrizePicks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. Download the app today and use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly when you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, run your game. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Make your second listen Locked On Nuggets or Locked On Wolves. Oh my God, what a game, worth every minute of my life I spent staying up. Double overtime, insane Jokic, unbelievable Ant late, Russell Westbrook, the record scratch of all record scratches. Oh, that was a painful ending. You'll learn what I'm saying, if you have no idea what I'm talking about, by listening to Locked On Wolves or Locked On Nuggets. Let's talk about Pascal Siakam. Here's what's happened to the point that I have ignored talking about this at this point. Almost every game since he was very good in their win over Brooklyn, right? Their second one. I would say every game since, someone said to me on Twitter at some point or in real life many times, something wrong with Siakam? Is he okay? And two of the games since then, he shot 50% and 75%. And, the game he just played, like, he had 11 points, but he hit the dagger 3 and had a 6-point flurry in the early second quarter where it's like, it's fine. Like, this is what Siakam does. There are points in a game where his matchup's great and he can score and he's really good. And he's been really good all season. And yet you look back, right? He was awesome in that Brooklyn game I just said. Then he had 6 points in the first Brooklyn game. Excuse me, I said 29 against Brooklyn. I meant Dallas. 6 against Brooklyn the first time, then 26. Since then, 14, 15, 13, 11, 11. For a 7-game stretch where he is averaging 13.7 points per game. 5 boards, 4.1 assists. Those are roughly his numbers. But field goal percentage, 42%. Effective field goal percentage, 44%. What's going on for a guy that the whole season I have nicknamed the metronome because he's just constantly beating to the speed of his drum, and he's going to give you roughly the same stats every night, regardless of what the game's speed is, regardless of what challenges he faces. He's going to hit somewhere between 45 and 60% of his shots and have something like 26 and 4. That's a great player to have. Coaches love that consistency, and it hasn't been there. So why? Right? It is something actually going on, and what's the deal? So I could start this very easily. Pascal Siakam this season, great shooting year, 38.7% from three right now. He's shooting in this stretch since March 20th, 7 games, but still. That OT game against Brooklyn till now. He's 4 for 21 from deep. In some ways, done, right? He's not making shots that for his career have not been known as a weapon for him, but of late and this season, and with the Pacers who have transformed the shots of like Jalen Smith and Obi Toppin and Aaron Nesmith and Andrew Nembhard and lots of other guys, have made his shot better, and that's escaped him these last couple games. I'm not going to end it there because I think there's more to it than that. But a lot of my theses come back to like, hey, sometimes shots just don't go in the basket. Because Siakam, the way he plays and the way the Pacers play, he's going to get touches and chances. He's out there a lot with lineups where he is like the play finisher, no doubt, especially when he's out there with those second unit groups. And I get that they've changed shape recently with Jarris and the way they're trying to get Obi more consecutive burn with his minutes and when they use their backup centers and Myles. Like, I get that it's different, but he's still primarily getting those minutes of the 1-star plus bench groups. And those are where he can feast. And so he's going to have chances to break out of this kind of stuff. The other stat that stands out to me about this stretch, 21 total free throw attempts in 7 games. That's 3 a game. I'm not saying Siakam is some world beater free throw guy. And I think a lot of people have also pointed out during this stretch, like, hey, he probably should be getting to the line more often. But he averages 4 a game this season. He averages over 4 a game for his career. In fact, he's been well over 4 every year since 2018-19 until this year. So that's a part of this too. Not getting to the line as much. His free throw shooting is at 75% this year, despite feeling like it's not that high. Like he does get points there. His free throw rate this season, 26.4, his lowest since 2017-18, his second season in the NBA, right? And it's even lower in the stretch. So the two two of the considered most efficient spots on the floor, the free throw line and threes. Siakam struggling from both of those. Great. That's like a very easy start to this. Ball go in, net, not enough. It's sometimes that simple. It is a little bit of shot diet stuff too, right? 63.4% scoring at the rim in this last 7-game stretch. That's okay. That's actually probably fine. I think he will take that. But the shots that you think about when you think about Siakam's bread and butter, what are they, right? Describe them to yourself or think about them in your head. Quick seal and transition because a guard's on him, turn over his shoulder, jumper. Or get it deep in the post, spin around a guy, floater, or toss it in, right? Catch at the elbow, jab. Okay, that guy's not going to engage me. Great, I'll just shoot over him. 2 points, right? Those are the things that Pascal Siakam does, and he's so good at them that a team that prides itself on its efficiency and should, one of the best effective field goal percentages in the league, they call themselves paint to great. They love to get to the rim. They generate open threes, albeit not a high volume of them, and they take the shots from the areas that are considered efficient, and that's how they have such an efficient offense, in part. That team trusts Pascal Siakam to shoot mid-range shots because he makes them at a good enough rate, to great enough rate at times, that keeps up with the efficiency of the greater Pacers offense, right? And so it's okay for him to shoot those. And I think that's been fine. I think that's been the right choice, right? For years, he's owned the craft as a mid-range guy. No one thinks of Siakam as a mid-range scorer. Well, maybe they do. He can score from everywhere. I don't think anybody's like, this is a mid-range assassin. But he's good at those spots, right? Even on this season, 55% from 3 to 10 feet. That's a career high. 45% from 10 to 16 feet. Above his career average, about where he's been the last couple years before that. Doesn't take that many long twos. He's been good at cutting those out. Regardless of my over-explanation on Pascal Siakam, who you guys understand because you watch him, right now, he is not making those bread and butter shots. These last 7 games, 10 for 27 on what play-by-play stats calls short mid-range shots. That's 37%, almost 10% below his season average. Long mid-range shots, 33%. Not a crazy volume, but still, he's not making those. So he's been and on top of all this, he's been slightly more reliant on jumpers. His rim frequency, he's making shots at the rim, is down ever so slightly. Missing Myles Turner for a game in there hurts. The game he played, where he only had 6 points against Brooklyn, where he only took 8 shots, and he took 8 shots in DC when the Pacers were just bombing away threes. Like, that changes these numbers a little bit in a way that's going to be goofy, and it's a small sample. So altogether, I walk away with 2 takes on this. One is the boring one. I hate to say this. I agree with everybody watching Pascal Siakam. He's not looking the same effectiveness right this second in terms of ball going net. I think that might just be it. He's just missing, right? His volume is a little lower. Like his rim efficiency is different, but he's taking 13 shots a game still. For the season, he's taken like 15, right? Like, the volume's a little lower. I think the Pacers would like to get it back, but the minutes are down. He played 22 minutes in Washington. He played 27 in OKC, for example. Like, it's very easy to see some shots toggling back to him with normal minutes. So I just kind of think thing one could be, let me be clear, because I have a second thing coming, that he's just missing, right? We'll laugh about you could be listening to this after the Hornets game and be cracking up. Like, he just kicked the Hornets' butts on 18 shots, and it's like, Tony, what are you talking about? But I also think thing two is that I have eyeballs and I can watch the games, and I think this is the part that people are leading them to ask, because if Pascal Siakam had a few games where he was just missing shots in a row, whatever, I think there is a little bit that I look at him and I'm like, that guy looks a little tired. That guy's been carrying a huge load this season, and his usage is actually a little slightly down recently, but with Nesmith cooking, like, who cares? The starting lineup can shift those away for right now. He just looks a little like, man, could this guy use a day off? And it's hard to say that. That guy's missed 1 game since being traded to the Pacers last January. He's missed 1 game. That'll beat you down. They're in a seeding fight. It's going to be very hard for them to just straight up rest Pascal Siakam. I think that might help. I've thought that before about Nembhard, and then he went crazy in their next game. I've thought that before about a couple of guys before, and like, they all figured out, they pushed through their athletes. They're in awesome shape. But for a guy who's done this for 2 straight seasons with no injuries, it makes me think it even more. And it really makes me think it when, again, this is just like an eye test thing that might just be based on results. So I hope I'm not making something out of thin air, but it just feels like a guy who's just like dragging a little bit. And if any sort of rejuvenation to get his pop and juice back would make him look like the player he's been for almost the entire season. I don't think he's playing awful. Like, I thought he played good. The game they just won, they beat Sacramento, right? He's playing small ball 5 a lot in that game. Like, I thought he played fine in that game. He was plus 26 against Minnesota, right? Like, he missed shots in that game. Who cares? He was awesome, right? He was very good against the Lakers. They lost that game. He was plus 14 with him on the floor in that game, right? Like, he's still playing well or finding ways to be effective, but it feels a lot different when, one, the stuff you can see looks different, and two, the results of the shots that he normally makes are different. And all of a sudden, there's some shock value to that. That is my current take on the, hey, Tony, some going on with Siakam question, but I would like to watch a little more. Let's talk about seeding with the Pacers playoff-bound Magic numbers and the Mad Ants. A fun day for the Mad Ants. We're talking about them 2 out of 3 days. To close out today's Locked On Pacers. Before we do any of that, we got to talk about Monarch Money. Ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That is where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So you stop just simply managing your money and start building wealth. When many people start using Monarch, they realize just how much they're spending on something like food delivery. Now, they budget smarter and save more. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending, and even plan long-term goals. And managing your money with your partner smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Code LOCKEDONNBA for half off your first year. Back here on Locked On Pacers, thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day. Locked On Warriors or Locked On NBA, your second listen. Steph had 52, the Warriors won. And on Locked On NBA, we talked about that and Jokic and a bunch of dudes who recently have made me go, whoa, they're playing good, and they've been playing good for a while. Last couple minutes here, this isn't really standings watch, but it's adjacent to it. With the Pacers playoff bound, their seeding range is very small. It's 3 to 6. They're either, they're probably playing, they're actually sealed that they are playing one of those teams very soon. If Milwaukee can get 1 or 2 more wins. Same with Detroit. It'll be the Pacers are playing one of New York, Detroit, or Milwaukee in the first round. The first thing I want to talk about is Magic numbers. What number of wins or losses do the Pacers need to secure certain seeds? They don't control their own destiny for the 3 seed. In fact, the opposite is the case. The Knicks' magic number of knocking the Pacers away and securing the 3 seed for themselves. The Pacers currently have 44 wins and 31 losses, so their peak wins is 51. The Knicks currently have 48 wins, and the Knicks hold the tiebreaker over the Pacers. This one's very easy. The magic number for the Knicks to clinch the 3 seed is 3. Any combination of Knicks wins and Pacers losses mounting to 3. There's lots of other tiebreakery things with 3-team tiebreakers with Detroit and all that. It's maybe not exactly 3, but it is 3 New York wins for the Pacers to no longer be eligible for 3 and then be locked into 4. Just an aside, Gavin Shaw and I did a podcast a couple weeks ago. He hosts Locked On Knicks talking about seeding and the race for 3 and like who do you want to play in the first round. And now with Dame hurt, I think the discussion changes a little bit because what I talked about was, I don't know how much the gap between the teams you'd play in the 4-5 and the team you'd play at 3 is so enormous that you'd be willing to play the Celtics instead of the Cavs. Now, I think that if the Bucks are this flimsy without Dame and Dame doesn't play, there's a chance and an argument. I don't know that I'd make it. Giannis is amazing. But it's possible that one could make the argument and be compelling enough that I'd end up agreeing with you that beating the Bucks is easy enough without Dame, that is the easiest path out of the first round, and you're willing to take the risk of playing the Celtics to get that benefit, right? So that does change the calculus of that decision, but it might not matter. The Pacers can't control that, and with 7 games to go, can you believe how little time is left in the season? Making up a 3-game gap that's really a 4-game gap is hard to do when you don't have the tiebreaker. So odds are the Pacers will not be getting 3. It's still technically possible, but you might not. We do standings watch every Monday here. We might not be talking about the Knicks anymore come Monday. Their magic number with the Pistons. The Pistons are 42 and 33, meaning they have 2 more losses and 2 fewer wins than the Pacers, which means it's simple. Number of games left, -2. The Pacers' magic number to finish better than Detroit is 5. Any combination of Pacers wins and Pistons losses would make that the case. The Pistons' peak wins is 49. That's another way to do it. The Pacers need 5 wins to get there, and the Pacers do have the tiebreaker with the Pistons. So 5 is the number of wins the Pacers would need to guarantee to finish ahead of Detroit and have home court in the first round there. And their magic number with the Bucks, who are 1 game behind Detroit, you'd think, oh, it's 6, right? The Bucks' peak wins is 48 because they have 34 losses. 6 wins for the Pacers, boom. That's all good. And that is correct. It's not 5 because the Bucks hold the tiebreaker there. So the Pacers have to finish a full game ahead of the Bucks as well. So the magic number there is 6 since the Bucks can get 7 more wins in theory this season. Those are your magic numbers. That was what I wanted to talk about with seeding was the Bucks part of this, but they played pretty well against the Suns today. They actually set a record for offensive efficiency. I want to find this tweet. It was from someone who covers the Suns. Yeah, the Bucks just shot 68.9% in a game against the Bucks, the highest field goal percentage by a team in a regular season since 1998. So I don't know that the Bucks are playing well necessarily, but don't sleep on them as a team that could surge a little bit. So keep an eye on them. Pacers have to be 5 games better than Detroit and have a magic number of 5 for a top 4 seed. And remember, Detroit and Milwaukee play each other. That's going to be 2 losses added into the mix for the Pacers race. That doesn't change their magic number because the same team could win both of those games. But for a Pacers team that still has home games remaining against Washington, Charlotte, and Utah, they just need a few losses from those teams to feel good about their chances at 4. And the Pacers play Cleveland, Orlando, Cleveland, their last 3. Cleveland's motivations, the other thing to watch. I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get into that with Standings Watch next week, the motivations of other teams. Last thing to talk about today. Didn't know if we'd do this or not. The Mad Ants, they won a playoff game for the first time since 2017, beating the Greensboro Swarm on Tuesday. Got to be in the building for that and see it, which was quite fun. Might be their last game in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. The Maine Celtics beat the Capital City Go-Go, meaning that the only way the Mad Ants would play another home game this season is if they make the finals. Tough. But they played a home game. They won. They played very well. Quentin Jackson was sensational, just awesome. But Johnny Furphy had 25 points. He was very good. Ray J. Dennis was quite good. Enrique Freeman was pretty good. Those are the Pacers guys. And so the obviously first thing is good for those players to play well and get those chances. This made me wonder and think, what would I do if I'm the Pacers? Do I send those guys? So the Pacers the Mad Ants, next game would be against the Osceola Magic, the Orlando Magic's affiliate team down in Orlando. If I'm the Pacers, what do I do? Do I send my 2A guys and maybe even Johnny Furphy down? Because this is a literal competitive advantage. Your G League team makes the playoffs. No other G League team who can just assign their 2A guys to play in a game and get minutes. If you're another team and you have a rookie who's not playing and your G League team's done, tough luck. The Pacers have, in theory, an opportunity to steal some development time for their 2A guys in Furphy. However, they're also in a seedings race, and Ben Mathurin's banged up. Do you send all of them to try to one, because you can, and it helps your development, but 2, to chase the win? They were all very good in the first playoff game. I don't know. I don't have any precedent for this, right? The last time the Mad Ants won a playoff game was the first season Kevin Pritchard was president. I don't remember anything about that. And the 2A contract had just started and become a thing. So I have no idea how the Pacers plan to handle something like that because we've never seen what they do before. If Mathurin plays, so a couple things matter here. One is if Mathurin plays Wednesday and he's back healthy, I think they could get away with sending all of them and not really be worried about the health of the Pacers as a team, especially because they play the Hornets and Jazz. Now, you can never overlook anybody, and the Pacers-Hornets series has been comically in favor of Charlotte the last couple of years. But because they might be able to win shorthanded anyway, if I were in charge, what I would do is I would send all 4. Go play, go develop, go maybe win and get to the conference finals, and then come back, right? And it's not even the day the Pacers play. It's on Thursday. So it might be not even that disruptive. So first of all, congrats to the Mad Ants. And all those players played very well. That's cool. Second of all, keep an eye on that, the active status of those players, both Wednesday and Friday. And if you want to watch it, 8 p.m. on Thursday, Mad Ants versus Magic. That's all for today. Tomorrow, we'll be talking Pacers Hornets. Did the Pacers finally beat the Charlotte Hornets, or did they get swept by them this year? We'll have a guest Friday. I'm supposed to have a guest today. I forgot because I'm dumb. That Tuesday's my own birthday. Yes, I forgot my own birthday, and I had lots of plans. So not going to take over someone else's life on a day that I didn't plan ahead. So we will have a guest Friday, I promise, and then we'll be talking Pacers Jazz the day after. Thank you guys so much for listening today. It is much appreciated. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony R. Reach. This podcast is there at Locked On Pacers. Thank you all so much for listening. Have a wonderful day. We'll see you very soon.